This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Good morning. It's Thursday, January 30th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
A passenger jet hits a helicopter near Reagan Airport in Washington, D.C.
I just saw a fireball and then it was just gone.
I'm Jeff McKay with the details.
President Trump signs the first bill of his second term into law while ordering some immigrants captured in ICE raids be sent to Guantanamo Bay. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has struggled with basic questions while denying he's anti-vaccine. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Former U.S. Senator Bob Menendez has been sentenced to 11 years in prison.
I hope President Trump cleans up the cesspool.
I'm Haya Panjwani.
Florida's GOP sparring over how to deal with the immigrant crackdown.
A public health alert has been issued for frozen, fully cooked Wegmans breaded chicken breast nuggets. I'm Julie Walker.
All ahead on America in the Morning. A passenger jet preparing to land at Reagan National Airport in the nation's capital crashed into the Potomac River after striking a military helicopter. America in the Morning's Jeff McKay has the story from Washington.
The American Airlines operated regional jet was on its final approach to Washington's Reagan Airport when it collided with a U.S. military helicopter that was airborne in the area just south of the Pentagon. The American Airlines CEO put out a statement.
American Eagle Flight 5342, operated by PSA Airlines, a CRJ-700 aircraft traveling from Wichita, Kansas to Washington Reagan National Airport, has been involved in an accident near Washington, D.C. It appears to have collided with a military aircraft on approach. Flight 5342 was under the command of 4 crew members and carried 60 passengers.
Flight 5342 was making a turn to land at the airport's runway 33, and it was seconds before touching down. The helicopter was identified by the Army as a Sikorsky UH-60 Black Hawk. It had 3 soldiers on board and was flying a training mission. Eyewitness video shows the helicopter flying toward the airplane when the crash happened. The passenger jet was partially submerged in less than 10 feet of water and had broken into 2 pieces. Air traffic control at Reagan Airport describes what happened. Audio courtesy of liveatc.net.
Both the helicopter and the plane crashed in the river. It's east of the approach end of runway 33. I just saw a fireball and then it was just gone. I haven't seen anything since they hit the river, but it was a CRJ and a helicopter that hit. I would say maybe a half mile off the approach end of 33.
3 hours after the crash, rescue teams reported they had pulled 19 bodies from the Potomac River. The Washington, D.C. medical examiners said they expect to deal with the largest collection of bodies in decades. President Trump was briefed about the crash and released a statement saying, quote, "May God bless their souls. It is important to note that this area is one of the busiest and most tightly controlled airspaces in the nation due to its proximity to the Pentagon, U.S. Capitol, and White House." Reagan Airport was immediately closed to all flights, and the National Transportation Safety Board expected to have more details today. I'm Jeff McKay in Washington.
As ICE and law enforcement around the country continue with raids aimed at arresting immigrants in the country illegally who have committed crimes, President Trump announced an executive order that would send some of those apprehended to a prison facility at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Our John Stolnis has more.
The president making the announcement during the signing ceremony of the Laken Riley Act, a law named after a young woman who was assaulted and killed in February of last year by a Venezuelan national in the country illegally.
While on a run, Laken was attacked, viciously assaulted, beaten, brutalized, and murdered by an illegal alien gang member who was set loose into our country by the last administration.
The law would mandate people in the United States illegally who are accused of theft and other violent crimes be detained and potentially removed from the country even prior to a conviction. Meanwhile, ICE raids continue around the country, and the president made clear he plans on sending some of the worst criminals arrested to Gitmo.
Most people don't even know about it. We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them because we don't want them coming back, so we're going to send them out to Guantanamo.
Following the announcement, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said this is a step that makes sense.
The White House is working on to use resources that we currently have there at Guantanamo Bay. So we'll go through the process. The worst of the worst is where that could be utilized. So that potential is there. We know we need the infrastructure. We're going after these guys.
Meanwhile, confusion continues over the Trump administration's executive order that froze most federal funding of loans and grants after the White House rescinded a memo released Tuesday by the Office of Management and Budget that said the freeze aimed to make sure funds dispersed complied with Trump executive orders. However, White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said the order itself was not being rescinded, only the memo, because the memo created confusion and led to a federal judge ordering the temporary halt to the spending freeze. Leavitt said the president's EO on federal funding remains in full force and effect. John Stolnis, Washington.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. Sleep better together. Save 50% on the new Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Limited time, exclusively at a Sleep Number store. U.S. Senator gets long prison sentence. That and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Wet weather arrives in the west today with an update. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
The majority of the western United States stays largely dry through the daylight hours of today as high pressure continues to sit over the northern Rockies. However, a persistent storm will head out of the southwest today, bringing some steady snow and areas of snow showers and flurries, mainly early from Colorado into New Mexico. Fairly quiet conditions stretch from California into eastern Oregon and most of the northwest, but the first of what will be many storms in the west starts to push some rain on shore later today, mainly along the Washington coastline, but also reaching western Oregon and northern California overnight. Expect rain and mountain snow through Friday before the focus for rain shifts toward northern and central California for the weekend. For the south central states, wet weather continues today as that same storm exiting the southwest meets warmer and more moist air. This will result in a wide area facing rain today from eastern Oklahoma, across southern Iowa, and most of Illinois, also reaching Kentucky and Tennessee later today. Precipitation turns more showery to the south of there, with some thunder as well from southern parts of Arkansas and Oklahoma to the western Gulf Coast. Storms may even turn severe from the Little Rock area across Louisiana and eastern Texas from today into tonight, with damaging winds, hail, and even tornadoes all possible. For the East Coast, it's a dry Thursday for most as high pressure slides off the coast as the day progresses. There can be some late-day snow in and around Syracuse, New York, and points northward, but from New England to Florida, there's just not much going on in terms of precipitation. The wind also slackens off beneath that high following a rather gusty day yesterday. In Nashville, a mainly cloudy and cooler day leads to some afternoon rain with a high of 56. For Boise, Idaho, look for sunshine and a high of 44. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. faced some tough questions from senators during his confirmation hearing, which included fiery exchanges with lawmakers and interruptions from protesters in his path to become the nation's health chief. With a recap, here's Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani.
In my advocacy, I've often disturbed the status quo by asking uncomfortable questions. Well, I'm not going to apologize for that. We have massive health problems in this country that we must face honestly.
At his confirmation hearing to be the nation's health chief, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has struggled with basic questions while denying he's anti-vaccine.
Mr. Kennedy, you represent a voice for an inspiring coalition of Americans who are deeply committed to improving the health and well-being of our nation.
Louisiana Republican Bill Cassidy's a doctor and a key vote Kennedy needs, and asked his plans for changing Medicaid.
What reforms are you proposing?
Kennedy wavered.
Well, I don't have a broad proposal for dismantling the program.
And made false claims about it.
Fully paid for by the federal government.
It's not. States and federal taxpayers fund it. In several heated exchanges, Kennedy forcefully denied he's anti-vaccine.
I believe that that vaccines play a critical role in healthcare. All of my kids are vaccinated. I've written many books on vaccines. My first book in 2014, the first line of it is, I am not anti-vaccine, and the last line is, I am not anti-vaccine.
Ron Wyden and Democrats pointed to Kennedy saying in the past, there's no safe vaccine.
You have spent years pushing conflicting stories about vaccines. You say one thing, and then you say another.
And from Kennedy's former law school classmate.
Frankly, you frighten people.
Rhode Island Sheldon Whitehouse said Kennedy must tell Americans what he really believes about vaccines and stop saying they're not safe.
You're in that hole pretty deep.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
A judge sentences an emotional former Senator Bob Menendez to 11 years in prison for a years-long bribery and corruption scheme that saw him rewarded with gold bars and stacks of cash. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
Former U.S. Senator Bob Menendez has been sentenced to 11 years in prison for his conviction of accepting bribes of gold and cash and acting as an agent of Egypt.
President Trump is right. This process is political and it's corrupted to the core. I hope President Trump cleans up the cesspool and restores the integrity to the system.
His own lawyer said that those crimes earned him the nickname Gold Bar Bob. Judge Sidney H. Stein announced the sentence after Menendez tearfully addressed the judge, saying he'd lost everything he cared about. Prosecutors sought a 15-year term for the Democrat convicted of crimes, including acting as an agent of the Egyptian government. 2 New Jersey businessmen convicted with Menendez were sentenced earlier to 7 and 8 years in prison. I'm Haya Panjwani.
When we return on America in the Morning, inflation higher, new car incentives after these messages. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments takes a disciplined approach with investing, helping clients navigate volatile markets. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. The Thursday update, here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after the Fed held interest rates steady at its meeting, pausing its rate-cutting cycle after it cut interest rates at the past 3 meetings. Inflation has ticked higher for the past 3 months, and the last CPI, Consumer Price Index reading, was inflation at 2.9%.
Inflation down to 2% sustainably is what we're trying to achieve. We want to see, serial readings that suggest that we're making further progress on inflation. That's what we want to see.
Federal Reserve Chair Jay Powell, if you have balances on your credit cards, the interest rate you're paying is holding steady. President Biden's former lead economist, though, warning the Trump administration to be careful with inflation.
I'm most concerned about potential inflationary effects from sweeping tariffs. Targeted tariffs can be potentially useful and effective. Sweeping tariffs, that can be very damaging economically.
Former chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, Jared Bernstein, on CNBC. Microsoft and Tesla shares lower in after-hours trading on disappointing quarterly results. Last year was a pretty good one for auto sales, but dealers say incentives will help sell more cars this year as consumers have been hit hard by inflation. Group 1 owns dealerships nationwide, selling many major brands. Customers are paying slightly less right now for new cars if they're taking advantage of incentives.
There are some incentives out there, more than we've seen certainly in the last 2 years.
Group 1 Automotive CEO Daryl Kenningham on CNBC. Here's what's selling right now.
Customers are still showing a preference for large trucks and SUVs. Hybrid is still very strong and growing. EV is declining a bit.
The average new car payment last month in the U.S., $756, according to Cox Automotive.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. You'll want to let your loved ones know about these food recalls when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Florida lawmakers passed a sweeping immigration bill setting aside $500 million in public funds to help carry out President Trump's crackdown on those in the country illegally. However, the legislation in a state where roughly 1 in 5 residents is an immigrant may not have the backing of Governor Ron DeSantis. Florida's Republican-dominated legislature passed the measure largely along party lines, but happened after the governing body blocked DeSantis' call for a special session and crafted the bill themselves. DeSantis, who has called the final bill weak, says he is considering vetoing the measure. 2 urgent recalls to let you know about. The FDA announces an urgent recall of classic Lay's potato chips in the 13-ounce bag distributed in Washington State and Oregon. The other is for Wegmans brand frozen chicken nuggets due to possible bone fragments. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
A public health alert has been issued for frozen, fully cooked Wegmans breaded chicken breast nuggets by the USDA. They want to make sure customers are aware that they should not eat them because some nuggets may contain bones. While the product is no longer for sale, the packages say best if used by August 2025. The nuggets were only made for Wegmans food markets and distributed along the East Coast. The USDA says it was notified of the issue after Wegmans received multiple consumer complaints of bone fragments in the nuggets. There have been no confirmed reports of injury. I'm Julie Walker.
America in the Morning for Thursday, January 30th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour, mid-air collision. We'll have the latest from Washington.
The Federal Reserve has left its key interest rate unchanged. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The Trump administration walking back a memo surrounding a federal funding freeze. I'm Clayton Neville.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has pulled the security clearance of former Joint Chiefs of Staff Chair General Mark Milley. Ed Donahue, Washington.
DeepSeek AI testing shows an 83% fail rate. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
A recently released voice message from Justin Baldoni to Blake Lively complicates their case. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. America in the Morning continues. At the National Weather Map, AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton has several areas of rain to share with us.
A disturbance that took shape over the southern plains on Wednesday, with rain from Texas into Kansas and Mississippi, will continue to deliver some rain to the south through the day today. However, as the storm slowly tracks to the east, the threat for some rain goes with it, bringing periods of wet weather as far to the north as Iowa and much of Illinois, and as far to the east as central Kentucky by the end of the day. A corridor of heavy rain is expected to extend from southern Missouri to the Texas Gulf Coast, and there could even be some severe thunderstorms with hail, strong wind, and tornadoes from eastern Texas through Louisiana and southern Arkansas as thunder extends into the Rio Grande Valley. Through early Friday, cities such as Waco and Dallas, Little Rock and Memphis may pick up as much as 2 to 4 inches of rain, with a general 1 to 2 inches from San Antonio to Nashville, southern Indiana, and just south of St. Louis. The eastern states have a rather dry Thursday in store thanks to high pressure centered just off the mid-Atlantic coast. Much of the Northeast will have a colder day as well behind a strong cold front, but even the lake effect snow comes to an end for now as sunshine returns in full force for many. However, continued gusty conditions to start the day will lead to AccuWeather real field temperatures as low as 30 below zero this morning over northern Maine, the single digits below zero from southern New England into northern New York, and just above zero within a zone including Buffalo and New York City. Most of the west should be rather quiet today, at least through the daylight hours, with areas of snow continuing for a time from east central Colorado into central New Mexico. Otherwise, the next storm, signaling a pattern shift toward wetter weather, reaches the Pacific Northwest by late in the day, with some rain right along the Washington coastline. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. An American Airlines flight and a military helicopter collide and crash into the Potomac River near Reagan National Airport. It happened just before 9 p.m. local time last night. The FAA released a statement saying that a CRJ-700 regional jet collided in midair with a Sikorsky UH-60 helicopter. PSA was operating Flight 5342 as American Airlines, traveling from Wichita, Kansas to Washington. It was just seconds from landing when the video shows the helicopter and passenger jet colliding. The plane came to rest in about 10 feet of water in the Potomac River. Water temperature at the time, just above 35 degrees. Wall Street reacts after the Federal Reserve announced it was leaving its key interest rate where it is. As Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports, this puts Fed Chairman Jerome Powell in the crosshairs of President Trump, who stated he wants interest rates lowered amid his flurry of economic plans, and taking to Truth Social, blaming the central bank for failing to stop the problem they created with inflation.
The Federal Reserve has left its key interest rate unchanged after 3 straight cuts last year.
At today's meeting, the committee decided to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 4.25% to 4.5%.
The central bank dropped the benchmark rate by a full percentage point in 2024 after several hikes aimed at taming high inflation.
Labor market conditions have cooled from their formerly overheated state and remain solid. Inflation has moved much closer to our 2% longer-run goal, though it remains somewhat elevated.
Now, with the economy staying strong and a solid jobs market.
With our policy stance significantly less restrictive than it had been, and the economy remaining strong, we do not need to be in a hurry to adjust our policy stance.
Chair Jerome Powell says inflation remains somewhat elevated, and it's hard to know where it will go, partly because it's unclear how fast President Trump's policies will impact the economy. The president said last week he'll demand the Fed lower borrowing costs.
I think I know interest rates much better than they do. The interest rates will come down.
You said that you would demand that the interest rates come down.
Well, I would put in a strong statement.
Do you expect the Fed to listen to you?
Yeah.
Powell says they haven't had any contact.
I'm not going to have any response or comment whatsoever on what the president said. It's not appropriate for me to do so. The public should be confident that we will continue to do our work as we always have, focusing on using our tools to achieve our goals and really keeping our heads down and doing our work, and that's how we best serve the public.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Another flurry of signatures from President Trump, who signed the Laken-Riley Act during a White House ceremony, marking the first legislative win for the second Trump presidency. Trump also said he would instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing a 30,000-person migrant detention center at Cuba's Guantanamo Bay facility. And Trump took the time to clarify his funding freeze. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
A federal judge is expected to issue a temporary restraining order barring the Trump administration from implementing a pause on federal loans and grants. Now, when the freeze was announced this week, local and state leaders started scrambling to make sure that their federal money is secure. A day after the initial memo and announcement, President Trump made a clarification.
And I'm restating right now to correct any confusion that the media has purposely and somehow, for whatever reason, created Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid have not been affected by any action we're taking in any way, shape, or form. We are merely looking at parts of the big bureaucracy where there has been tremendous waste and fraud and abuse.
The president highlighted some of what he referred to as wasteful spending that's being reviewed.
We identified and stopped $50 million being sent to Gaza to buy condoms for Hamas. 50 million. And you know what's happened to them? They've used them as a method of making bombs. How about that?
In a statement, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that this is not a recession of the federal funding freeze. She said it's simply a recession of the initial memo.
We stopped an attempt to make an illicit payment for illegal alien resettlement. We canceled $181 million in DEI training contracts. This is just for the training of people in DEI, which has been terminated and completely terminated. And we paused $1.7 billion in unauthorized payments to foreign organizations, including stopping more than $40 million that was on its way out the door to the very corrupt World Health Organization.
The purpose, she said, to end any confusion created by the court's injunction. She said the president's executive orders on federal funding are still in full force and effect and will be rigorously implemented. I'm Clayton Neville.
When we return on America in the Morning, Trump scorned, Zuckerberg pays. After these messages. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. The Pentagon has joined other federal agencies in an effort to adapt to President Trump's elimination of diversity programs. Pride Month, Black History Month, Martin Luther King's birthday, Holocaust Days of Remembrance, National Disability Employment Awareness Month, Women's Equality Day. A Defense Intelligence Agency memo obtained by the Associated Press shows 11 annual events affected. Also at the Pentagon, correspondent Ed Donahue reports Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has revoked the security detail and top secret clearance for a former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
The Pentagon says Hegseth also ordered the Inspector General to review Milley's actions while serving as the nation's top uniform officer to determine if a demotion is warranted. Milley had the job during Trump's first term. The relationship quickly soured. Milley was outspoken. He said this at his official retirement ceremony in 2023.
We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator. And we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator.
On the campaign trail, Milley was a frequent Donald Trump target.
And you had this group of incompetent people take over. Guys like Milley should have been fired. They should have been fired.
Milley's official portrait as Joint Chiefs of Staff chair has been taken down at the Pentagon. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Facebook parent company Meta has agreed to settle with President Donald Trump after he accused the company of violating his rights by suspending the president's social media accounts following the January 6th attack on the Capitol. In the settlement, Meta confirmed it will be making a donation of $22 million to Trump's presidential library and will also pay $3 million in legal fees. In 2021, Trump sued Meta and its CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, for censoring his social media account after the January 6th Capitol riot, accusing the company of colluding with Democratic lawmakers to silence the then former president. The settlement comes as Zuckerberg has attempted to smooth his relationship with Trump, which has included donating $1 million to his inauguration and ending its DEI programs. America in the Morning continues. It was in 2021 that condo collapse killed 98 people and led to emergency inspections of many Florida condominiums and buildings. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports on a Middle East developer who's now planning on constructing luxury apartments on that South Florida tower site.
A Dubai-based developer plans to build a 12-story luxury condominium project on the South Florida site where a building collapsed in 2021. DMAC International said that it planned to build the Delmore on the site where the Champlain Towers South partially collapsed in Surfside, Florida, outside Miami in June 2021. Construction has already started, and the project is expected to be finished in 2029. The company said in a news release that the price of a 4 or 5 bedroom unit will start at $15 million. The project will include a private restaurant, residential butlers, a wellness spa, and other resort-style amenities. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Following that school shooting in Nashville, students are pushing for better safety as they begin to return to school. Correspondent Jennifer King reports this comes as the Tennessee legislature will be debating school vouchers and just passed a bill calling for criminal penalties for officials who adopt sanctuary policies for migrants.
Students at Antioch High School in Tennessee staged a walkout on their first day back at school, saying they still don't feel safe after a school shooting last week.
Nobody wants to go back.
Student organizer Zara Niazi.
Pure fear. You never know. It just taught me, you can never know when your last moments could be.
On January 22nd, a 17-year-old student shot and killed a 16-year-old girl before shooting himself. On Monday, as the Tennessee State House gavelled back into session, some students from Antioch joined protesters at the state capitol asking for more gun control control. The Tennessee Republican supermajority is considering statewide school vouchers, hurricane relief, and immigration enforcement, but seems unlikely to take up gun violence measures. Audio courtesy WSMV. I'm Jennifer King.
Our top story this morning, a military helicopter and American Airlines passenger jet collide just before landing in Washington, D.C. There was another incident involving a passenger jet, this one in Asia. They were getting ready to take off when a fire started on a packed passenger jet in South Korea. Miraculously, all of the nearly 200 people on board managed to safely evacuate before the plane was destroyed. Correspondent Karen Shamas has the latest.
A passenger plane has caught fire before takeoff at an airport in South Korea, but all 176 people on board have been safely evacuated. The Transport Ministry says that the Air Busan Airbus plane was preparing to leave for Hong Kong when its rear parts caught fire at Gimhae International Airport. It says that the plane's 169 passengers, 6 crew members and 1 engineer were evacuated using an escape slide. The National Fire Agency says that 3 people suffered minor injuries, likely bruises, during the evacuation. I'm Karen Shamas.
The Chinese DeepSeek AI has not performed well in overall accuracy testing, scoring a total of only 17% in comparison to Western AI applications. Here's more on that with tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
It seems that all the hype behind China's DeepSeek chatbot may just be that. According to a report by trustworthiness rating service NewsGuard, the chatbot repeated false claims at least 30% of the time and gave vague or not useful answers 53% of the time. And in response to news-related prompts, it resulted in an 83% failure rate. Comparatively, that's far worse than the average fail rate of 62% for Western rivals, and could raise doubts about the AI technology that DeepSeek claimed performed on par or better than the #1 rated OpenAI. NewsGuard also showed that in 3 out of 10 prompts, DeepSeek generated the Chinese government's position on a topic without being asked anything related to China. D.A. Davidson analyst Gil Luria said that the importance of DeepSeek's breakthrough is not answering Chinese news-related questions accurately, it's the fact that it can answer any question at 1/30th of the cost of comparable AI models. Follow me on X at Chuck Palm.
Robert Workman has your check of sports.
The Warriors whipped the Thunder 116-109 last night, despite 52 points from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the NBA's leading scorer, just 2 off his career high that he set just last week. Andrew Wiggins had 27 for Golden State. The Cavaliers turned down the Heat 126-106 and moved past OKC for the best record in the association. Donovan Mitchell led the way with 34 points. Celtics got 34 from Kristaps Porzingis as they outran the Bulls 122-100.
I'm getting in good shape, and my shot is feeling smooth and feeling good, so I look forward to keep playing at this level.
Elsewhere, the Pacers pounded the Pistons 133-119. Pascal Siakam had 37 points. Tyrese Halliburton added 30. Raptors routed the Wizards 106-82 for their 5th win in a row and Washington's 15th consecutive loss. 5 dubs in a row for the Knicks as they dunked the Nuggets 122-112. Jalen Brunson had 30 points and 15 assists. Mavericks held off the Pelicans 137-136. Wins for the Nets, Sixers, Clippers, and Timberwolves. College basketball, #1 Auburn defeated LSU 87-74. The Tigers now 19-1, 7-0 atop the SEC. 4th-ranked Alabama got by #14 Mississippi State, while #6 Houston handled West Virginia. The Cougars remain unbeaten in Big 12 play. NHL, the Wild shaded the Maple Leafs 3-1. Panthers shut out the Kings 3-0 to move ahead of Toronto into first place in the Atlantic Division. Sergei Bobrovsky stopped 29 shots. Devils blanked the Flyers 5-0, 24 saves for Jake Allen. The Canucks clipped the Predators, and the Penguins nip Utah in overtime. By the way, if you were rooting for the Utah Yetis to win the naming contest, bad news. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office rejected the team's request, citing likely confusion with the firm that makes Yeti coolers. That's Thursday Sports.
Thank you, sir. Coming together through tragedy. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Actors Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively's public feud has a new development. Kevin Carr has details, which includes leaked video and lawsuits against each other.
The ongoing public feud between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni has taken another turn. This week, the Daily Mail obtained a voice message from Baldoni to Lively following some problems on the set of their hit film It Ends With Us.
I'm sorry I made you feel that way. That must have felt terrible. And I will for sure do better. That was not my best weekend.
During pre-production, Lively, who also served as a producer, offered suggestions on how a pivotal scene should play out. After director Baldoni was not receptive, Lively allegedly brought in her husband Ryan Reynolds and her friend Taylor Swift to put pressure on him, which he addressed in the voice message.
You got great friends if that's how you felt and they knew that, and we should all have friends like that, aside from the fact that they're two of the most creative people on the planet. The three of you guys together, it's unbelievable.
Eventually, Lively sued Baldoni for sexual harassment on set, and he countered with a $400 million defamation suit. Lively and Reynolds are currently petitioning the court to block Baldoni's attempt to publish the complete history of their text messages, which he claims have been cherry-picked and manipulated to make him look bad. Last week, raw footage from the film was leaked to the Daily Mail, which Lively's team says proves harassment, showing Baldoni inappropriately nuzzling her neck.
I'm getting beard on you today.
I'm probably getting spray tan on you.
It smells good.
Well, it's not that. It's my body makeup.
Baldoni's team says the actors were merely improvising in character. I'm Kevin Carr.
With the tragedy of the Los Angeles wildfires comes stories of people coming together to help one another. Correspondent Julie Walker reports some artists lost their life's work in fires, and fellow artists are helping them recover.
Some of the Los Angeles area residents who lost everything in the devastating wildfires were artists who are now getting help from other artists through the organization Grief and Hope. Artist Andrea Bowers.
LA is not just rich, famous people who have giant mansions that were destroyed. And,
Artist Solomon Huerta lost all his work in his Altadena home.
I'm hoping that there's support so that the art scene can still thrive, but I think it's going to be tough.
Anthony Obi, known as rapper Fat Tony's Altadena home, is also gone.
All of my stuff that is related to Fat Tony music that was in that house is gone, and it was the mother lode of it.
Now he says he's not sure if he will go back. This is the second home he's lost to a fire. I'm Julie Walker.
America in the Morning for Thursday, January 30th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.